So congratulations again on your new role. So what are you looking forward to most as the new artistic director here at the Old Globe?
Well, the Old Globe is one of the greatest theaters in the country, and I am beyond honored and thrilled and excited that I've been chosen to lead it. The Globe's program is extremely wide. It does Shakespeare, new plays, classics, American classics, musicals, and the fun and the thrill of being able to put together that program is just more than I could possibly ask for. It's going to be a great, great fun to try and make the theater's body of work continue forward and build on the history of the place that's so extraordinary. And I'm just thrilled, tickled pink.
So you're known for your work with the Shakespearean canon. Can you talk about what your commitment is to new plays and how that will inform your programming here?
Sure. Yes, I'm very proud of my work with Shakespeare, and Shakespeare has been a friend and a travel companion and a guide and a mentor and a source of tremendous richness in my life. But the interesting thing is that in my career in the theater, I've actually directed more plays not by Shakespeare than plays by Shakespeare. At the moment, I'm working on a new American play that I'm in rehearsal on in New York. So while I'm really happy to be able to build on the Shakespearean work that I've been doing, and while I understand how central Shakespeare can be to the life of an artist and to the life of a theater company, I'm actually very happy to continue the work that I've done in things like new translations of classics in foreign languages, exploring the American canon from the 20th century and before, and also, really importantly for a theater like the Globe, developing new American writing, which of course is the future of the American theater.
There's a lot vying for the public's entertainment dollars these days, and theater is a small slice of that pie. Can you talk a little bit about what your plans are to grow the audience here for the Old Globe?
Well, in my worldview, the theater is the largest slice of the pie, and the really great privilege of a job like this is I get to go around making that case. In private forums, in public forums, in places like the media. I'm so privileged that I get to be the public face of this institution and try and explain to people why having some theater in your life is a really, truly great thing. And look, we're sitting in the Globe Theater now, and the funny thing about these places is, you buy a ticket, you walk in, somebody tears your ticket, you sit for a couple of hours in the dark, and then you leave. And through some magical, mysterious process, in that couple of hours' time, you've learned a little bit more about what it means to be a human being. And only the arts can do that. And in my view, only the theater can do that in the kind of visceral, electric way that this institution does. Something about sitting in a group of strangers coming together, sitting quietly, laughing, gasping, breathing together while a moving story or a funny story plays out in front of you is a unique experience in human culture. And that I get to be the one who comes to San Diego and says, this is one of the great theater towns in the United States, and I'm so excited to be able to invite people in to continue to experience this work. This is just a great gift. Now, I should also say that a very big responsibility of a giant theater like this is to make sure that anybody who wants to see the work can. So we need to be programming a really wide variety of stuff that is going to appeal to all kinds of tastes and all kinds of interests and all kinds of communities. I think it's really important that the artists who live here in San Diego are represented on our stages. In addition to inviting the greatest talent from around the United States, I think it's really important that the Globe serve the local artist constituency. And then I also think it's really important that we take a look at exactly how we go about selling our tickets to make sure that anybody who really wants to get in finds a price point at which they can. And all that together is part of the artistic director's job.
And you've done quite a bit of work in terms of shepherding work outside of the theater itself. into places like parks and even prisons. I mean, do you plan to continue to do that kind
Well,
of
that's one of the things that we're talking about. Yeah, one of my proudest achievements in my recent job in New York has been the recreation of something that used to exist at the Public Theater a long time ago called the Mobile Shakespeare Unit, where we take Shakespeare out for free to, as you said, prisons, homeless shelters, centers for the elderly, recreation centers, and parks. And we're already in discussion here at the Globe about what it would take to bring that program here. Because even once you make tickets affordable for anybody who wants them, there are populations who simply cannot get here, whether because the circumstances of their lives just make it impossible. So I also think it's a really important function of a gigantic flagship institution like this to send the work out into the community for those people who can't get here.
That's exciting.
I think I must tell you, the experience of watching Shakespeare in a maximum security women's prison was really the most powerful thing I've ever experienced in my career in the theater. You know, these are people whose lives are really difficult and often very dark, and to create a moment of an hour or an hour and a half where all that's really being discussed is humanity in its purest kind of way, creates a certain kind of electricity in the air that I've never experienced anywhere else.
As you begin to think about programming your seasons, do you have a recipe in mind that to you is the mix of fun and accessible versus challenging and provocative? What's your take on?
If you could find that recipe, there are 30 or 40 people running theaters around the United States who would be very, very interested in finding it. The interesting thing about this theater is that it really is one of maybe 3 or 4 in the United States that puts together the variety of work in precisely the way that it does, where Shakespeare is kind of the house writer that occupies the kind of centerpiece of the place, and then all this other kind of material is programmed around it and in relationship to it. And I think each artistic director of his or her institution puts the proportions together differently. Somebody may like more emphasis on musicals, somebody may like more emphasis on new writing, but what I've learned over the years of my career working in all these different kinds of aspects of the theater is that the most important thing is to set everything up somehow in conversation with Shakespeare, so that the Shakespeare play sitting in our case, this magnificent outdoor theater here, the festival stage just over here, is somehow talking to the new musical that's about, in this case, a very dark and complicated episode in American history. Well, Shakespeare's talking about how history impacts the lives of individuals, and so is this musical Allegiance. And so somehow the artistic process is in a kind of wonderful resonance together. And to the extent that there's a recipe, it has to do with that, making sure that the whole program of work is talking to each piece is talking to the others in a way that presents the audience who's going to be watching the season with a kind of wide view of human experience.
One of the things you are also known for, or one of the things you've done anyway, is to cast some bigger names from the film and television industry in your plays. And I'm wondering if you think that that's part of what can draw in broader audiences to the theater.
I've certainly found in my experience that it can. People like to come to the theater to watch actors they know and actors that they're excited about seeing. And I certainly will be inviting them. I mean, I can't wait for the news of my appointment to be made public so that I can start working the phones. But on the other hand, as I said before, you know, here in San Diego, there's a really deep and rich local community of talented people. Certainly Southern California is second to none in the United States in terms of the sheer concentration of talent in the performing arts and in acting, God knows, in particular. So I hope that I will be able to put together a mix of people and artists that is as wide and various as the mix of material that we're programming.
So you've talked a lot about where the Old Globe has been and what we have here, this kind of rich theatrical space that we have here. How do you see it? How do you want it to evolve under your tenure?
Well, that's a good question. Let me think about the right way to address that. Well, what I've learned going through the process that has led me to this wonderful news of my appointment is exactly how rich the history of this place is. It's one of the oldest theater institutions in the country. And when I was first coming up, right after my student years in New York, all anybody was talking about in New York was the work, in particular in Shakespeare, that was going on out here. So the way I see my role now is less as a kind of revolutionary than as an evolutionary impact on the place. You know, I have such respect and reverence for the history of work that this place has been doing, that all I really want to be able to do is kind of continue to move it forward, maybe branch out in certain directions here or there, but really at the end of my tenure here, which I hope isn't till a very, very long time from now, what I hope more than anything else is that the body of work continues to be sophisticated and that more and more people in the San Diego area and in Southern California come to see this place as a necessary part of their lives. You know, I mean, I really truly believe that you cannot live a fully rounded life without having art in your existence on a day-to-day basis. And of course, you know, I've put my money on the performing arts and on the theater because I've really seen the way it can impact people, young, old, and in between, in extraordinarily positive ways. So ultimately, all I can really hope for is that more and more people give it a chance, more and more people find that having this gigantic treasure in their community is enriching their lives.
Just a few more questions.
Sure.
You talked about how art can be so enriching, and I think about it was just this season where I sat right over there and watched one of the most powerful plays I've seen in a long time, which was the Scottsboro Boys. Mm-hmm. And that was a real risk, and it wasn't palatable to everyone, but it was certainly very, very powerful theater. And I'm wondering if those are the kinds of risks that, you know, will you be taking risks like that?
I hope I will be brave enough to take risks like that, yeah. Once again, the special position that an institution like this is in is that it really has to take into account a very wide variety of tastes and very wide variety of interests. So I think it's about a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B. And as the audience comes to trust one's taste, because one of the things that an artistic director does primarily is to sort of exercise his taste in public, is people say, yeah, I like what that guy's doing. And you know, I like the plays that I saw there last season. Now he's doing something that I'm not sure will be for me, but you know, I trust him and I think the work they're doing is always excellent, so I'll give it a try. And I think that's kind of how you do it, is you invite people to come along with you as you are investigating all these different kinds of work. And then they will take a chance on something that they might not think is for them and may hope they would find that it's exciting, as you did in that case. Now,
you've lived and worked primarily on the East Coast. Are you ready for the California lifestyle?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I was thinking a lot about this. I actually lived in Los Angeles from 2003 to 2007, and ended up, once my daughter was born, we decided to go back east to raise her where all my family is. And I now see, having gotten this job, what I did not know at the time, which was that those 4 years in LA were all about me figuring out Southern California for this job. Because look, as everybody who lives here knows, it's a little different here than it is in New York, you know? And people who come to this part of the country for the first time can find themselves a little unsure as to what those very tall trees with just some green leaves at the top are really all about, you know? And I'm really happy and lucky that I've been through that part of my introduction to Southern California a number of years ago. And in fact, was completely beguiled by it. My wife and I have a house in Joshua Tree that we bought then. And let me tell you, San Diego is a lot closer to Joshua Tree than Brooklyn is. And you know, all the obvious things, the weather and the light and the water and all of that are obviously wonderful and exciting here. But I really found that there is a sense of possibility in the air in Southern California that even in New York, for all its adventurousness and for all its energy, there's a certain sense of we've been here a long time, we've tried everything, you can't show me anything new. And the thing I truly loved about this place last time I was here, and the thing I'm truly looking forward to this time, is that there's a real openness, a real sense that this is a place where you can come and try stuff. And people are open to it and embracing of it and warm about it. So that's great. I mean, to come here with young kids and raise my kids here while being part of this institution and doing great work, it's really just a priceless opportunity, and I'm so grateful.
Well, we're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.